There is only one proven correct way to manage your money. And we're going to tell you what it is. Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median. Now, before we delve into the correct way to manage your money, we'll start out by just sort of giving you an overview of 3 of the most popular money management methods. We'll take them apart just a little bit, tell you what we like about them and what we kind of don't like about them. We want to encourage you to stick with us to the end of the video, because then when we're done reviewing those 3 money management methods, we're going to tell you which one is the one single sole correct way to manage your money. Hey, listen, if you are all about learning about frugality and hearing about it from a positive perspective, well, that's exactly what we do every single week on this channel. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification button so you keep up with all of our videos twice a week. All right, Larry, let's start out with option number 1. And tell us in the comment section as we go along, have you heard of these methods? Do you use them? And have they been successful for you? Number 1.
The first money plan was proposed by Senator Elizabeth Warren from her book, The Ultimate Lifetime Money Plan. And she called hers the 50-20-30 plan. Now,
alternately, you've maybe perhaps heard it called the 50-30-20 instead of the 50-20-30. We're going to tell you what those numbers stand for. Now, in the 50-30-20 money management plan, it just basically tells you to divide your money up into 3 different buckets, if you will. So the 50% bucket, the largest bucket, is for your basic needs. So we're talking food, clothing, shelter, any bills that absolutely must be paid each month need to come out of that 50% that you take off the top of your paycheck when you receive it.
So that would include insurance and taxes as well? And that's 50% of your income.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Elizabeth's plan in just a sec. Hang in there with us. We're going to lay it out here for you, all right? So these are your must-haves. Now, the next percentage is the wants percentage. Now, depending on whether you call it the 50-20-30 or the 50-30-20 plan, look, your wants, regardless, are going to be either 20 or 30% of your entire paycheck that you have available. So wants, and by the way, I got the information for this from the website Investopedia. In case you want to look at the whole article where I just sort of am synopsizing Elizabeth's plan, I'll leave a link for that article in the description of the video, and you just click on it and go to the original article so you can see exactly what I'm synopsizing for you.
So wants are all the things that you want. That kind of makes sense. That would include eating out, entertainment, like movies, concerts, fun things to spend your money on.
Vacations would also have to go in that 20 or 30%, depending on how you're dividing up that pie.
Yeah, and sporting events.
Now, this category also needs to include what Investopedia refers to as upgrades. So this is their definition of upgrades, all right? So I'm just going to read it to you. That includes perhaps something like the costlier steak instead of a less expensive hamburger. Well, we're vegan, so that makes that pretty easy, doesn't it? Or perhaps they suggest the idea of buying a Mercedes instead of a more economical Honda.
I like this plan.
Now, basically, it's all those little extras, they say, that you want. I'm not sure if any of that constitutes little extras, all right? Now, the last percentage in the 50-30-20 or the 50-20-30 plan is savings. Larry, what constitutes savings in Elizabeth Warren's plan?
Well, savings is pretty much what it sounds. That would be all the money that you're putting in the bank to save. That might be for retirement. It might be for a new house, whatever your savings plan is. And that would also include your investments.
401k retirement plans. Now, it's also going to include any extra money that you are putting towards your debt repayment. So remember that 50%, that needs category, your minimum debt repayments, they have to go into that 50%. So what's left at the end is what you are going to apply to savings goals. All right, here's what we like about this plan. It's easy peasy. You can just memorize 50, 30, 20, right? It's not that tough. And it does give people sort of, people tend to skate through life unless they have a specific goalpost or a specific like stop sign. Okay, this is a great example of a plan that gives you a specific stop sign. I'm going to 50% of my take-home pay, and I'm not spending any more than that on my basic needs. I'm going to 30% on my wants and 20% on savings, right? Very clear-cut amounts of money. So actually, that's kind of nice because that works for concrete sequential people, works great.
Yeah, so what that plan helps you do is plan for your emergency fund or your savings. It is simple. I got to say that. It is extremely simple. It's easy to do that kind of math on your paycheck. Now, my question is, how many people have only 50% of their total pay to deal with all of their essentials? Because I don't know what percentage ours is. Have you figured our percentage?
It's more than 50%, I gotta be honest.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is where we get into where we think Elizabeth's program has a little bitty flaw here or there. The first problem with Elizabeth's formula is the fact that there ain't no giving in there.
You mean for people to give
money toward
charity?
charity? There's no charitable giving. There's no, for us, it's tithing.
Yeah.
So 10% of our paycheck goes directly toward tithing, and her plan allows 0 for that. I don't see it listed anywhere in her plan. It just doesn't appear.
Yeah, and there's no provision for gifts or for clothing. Now,
Elizabeth, man, problem area.
Yeah.
You're going to need clothes. We're just letting you know, sooner or later, you're going to need some clothes.
And the obvious problem, which we've already kind of touched on, is if you're in a lower income bracket, which we're in, it would be very difficult to meet these percentages. Impossible, in fact.
How many of you could meet your basic needs, your bare bones budget, on 50% of your take-home pay? That's your net pay, not your gross, your net, 50% of your net pay. And I would dare say not many of us, because that has to include like any mortgage that you have or your rent. And it also needs to include all of your utilities, your cell phone bill, a minimum debt repayment. It needs to include food. It needs to include all of that in that 50%. And I find very little evidence, either anecdotally or from our own experience, that would lead me to believe that anybody living even a middle class income, let alone a low income, could afford to spend only 50% of their take-home pay on needs.
Now, having said that, I think we were fairly close to this when we were both working, and we were putting that extra money down toward the principal on the house. I think we were close to the 50%, but then after that, Hope came home to be a stay-at-home mom, and that took care of that. I mean, we could not have lived under those percentages on our income.
Now, here's the final thing that concerns us about the 50-30-20 plan before we swing into the next sort of major money management method. That is the fact that, honestly, for people like us who love that minutia of detail and like breaking our budget down to a whole lot of categories, it's just too simplistic. It doesn't, for us, it doesn't account. There's a whole lot of loose ends in there that I don't think it accounts for. And so for us, that's why I would say probably for both of us, it would be a no-go.
Yeah, our budget is far more detailed, where Hope has laid out a provision for quite a few different segments of our outlay of money. And so this wouldn't cover that. It's too broad. It's just not specific enough to work for what we do.
You ready for money management method number 2? Money management method number 2 is
the envelope system.
Larry loves the envelope system so
No,
much.
I don't. No, I don't.
All right,
No.
if you're unfamiliar with it, let us give you kind of the 411 on the envelope system, and then we'll talk about why we like it or why we don't like it.
And this was popularized by Dave Ramsey. That's the first time I ever heard of an envelope system. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great starter system. If you're starting to budget, I think it's a good way to develop those disciplines.
All right, if you're unfamiliar with it, the envelope system is where you physically use envelopes, and you have a separate envelope for each category of your budget, and you put cold hard cash into that envelope. And when you purchase something that comes from that budget category, you only take it out of that envelope. Now, it's pretty good in that you have a definite spending limit. We've talked about the envelope system before and been very open about the fact that the one time that we use the envelope system is when one of our budget categories goes ballistic and we can't like rein it in. No matter how hard we try, I will get the envelope out and show it to Larry. And I'll say it's time for the envelope system, especially food. Food is something that it can just go really, really quickly. So if our food expenditures get out of whack, I will grab the envelope, and it works like a charm. It really, really does. And that's what we like about it, because you know what? Once your envelope's empty, it's empty. There ain't no more where that money came from until the next paycheck or the next month. And so in that way, envelope systems work really, really well.
It's a good way to get your budget under control if it's out of control. And as Hope said, if you have one area or two that you're having difficulty managing, an envelope system will help you out immensely. I rather would see the budget in an Excel spreadsheet or in a program where you can quickly see how much you have left and keep kind of watching it as you spend your money down each month. We budget monthly, so that makes it easier every 30 days or every 31 days to put a check on what we're doing. So we can get halfway through the month. If we have more than half of that money spent, we know we're going a little too hard with it, and we've got to, lift up on the accelerator a little bit.
Now, it is automatic accountability, and that's the last thing we really like about the envelope system. There is specific limits and specific accountability with putting your money into envelopes. Now, Larry is going to wax eloquent for a moment about why he really doesn't like the envelope system, and he cringes really badly whenever I bring the envelopes out.
Well, I don't really like the idea of carrying cash around with me. I'd rather use a debit card. And I think a debit card is the best way, because you can look at your statement immediately online and see what you're doing with it. And I don't like the idea of carrying around a multitude of envelopes. I think it's really easy to lose money that way. And maybe in some parts of your city, it's not a good idea to carry cash. It's probably not safe. So I just think it's kind of an arduous way to budget.
Now, the last thing that makes the envelope system sort of problematic is the fact that it is kind of easy to cheat. You just take a $20 bill out of one envelope and look, you just move it to the other envelope. Look, you know what that's called? Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Absolutely. And look, we've all done it. Raise your hand if you've ever done this, all right? We have, but the envelopes make it super easy to do that. And it's not a good idea, because then your written budget is worth absolutely nothing. If you're constantly moving around money from one envelope to the other, you really honestly don't have a really good clear-cut idea of what you're spending on any area of your budget, and that is not a good idea. Now, before we move on to the third method of money management, and this is super popular, we want to remind you to stick around to the end of the video, because we are going to reveal to you then the perfect method of money management, the only one that works all the time. All right, option number 3. Whose plan is this, Larry?
Well, this is probably the most popular money guy that's on radio, TV, YouTube, online, and
He's
that's
everywhere. He's everywhere.
Dave Ramsey. He's become very popular. I don't know when he started out. I think he's been doing this for at least 10 years or
Oh,
so.
no, longer than that.
Longer than that?
Oh, I'm going to say at least 25 or 30 years. Somebody's going to know and tell us in the comment section.
Well,
All right.
he learned by the school of hard knocks. He
did.
He had to go bankrupt, and he had to get it figured out what would work. Once he established that plan, he's been very generously sharing it with all of us. So his plan has to do with baby steps.
How many baby steps, guys? 7. 7 baby steps.
Yeah.
Read them off, Larry. What are they?
Okay, this first step is to have $1,000 in an emergency fund. That's a really good place to start.
Yep.
Most of your emergencies are hopefully going to be a little less than $1,000. With the price of things going up, though, that emergency fund could go pretty quick. Step 2 is pay off debt using the snowball method. And the snowball method is you hit I believe it's the lowest amounts of debt you have, and that clears all of those off. And then you have that money to attack your bigger money amounts of debt. And so it kind of works like a snowball. Snowball, as it's going down a hill, gathers snow and becomes larger. So that's the snowball method. The step 3 is the 3 to 6 month emergency fund, and that's
Which
a lot.
we do recommend.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're with you, Dave, on that.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Step 4 is invest 15% in retirement, and I don't know, when does he recommend to do that?
After you're done with step 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, sometime before you retire, right? Hopefully.
All right.
Okay.
Step number 5.
Number 5 is start a children's college fund. Step number 6 is pay off your home early, and we do stand behind him on that one.
We do.
And number 7 is build wealth so that you can give. The idea is to be able to give back from the amount of money that you're saving.
All right. So first, we're going to tell you what we are. For those of you who wonder, we're on baby step 7. We've been on baby step 7 for like a uber long period of time because we paid off our first home 5 years after we took the mortgage out.
Right.
And we saved laboriously and paid cash for home number 2. And so we've actually technically been on baby step 7 for a long time. We do not pay for our children's college education. We give them $1,000 a month to pay, or $5,000.
That would be
very generous. $1,000 a year when they're in college to pay for books, and that's all that we give our children when they're going through college. And so we have followed the baby steps. We've not done them in order. We've done them a little bit out of order, and probably paid a pretty hefty price for having done them out of order. Now, what do we like about Dave's plan?
Well, overall, it's very good. We like it best, really, of all the 3 money management plans.
Very systematic. It's concrete, sequential. It makes a lot of good common sense. And you actually will attain wealth, and you actually will become debt free as you work your way through the baby steps. So yeah, overall, we like them.
I like the idea of the baby steps because it gives you a way to approach getting on a budget when you don't have a lot to work with as you're starting out. So it gives you some hope, and you see some immediate results, even though you're not making huge progress at first. As you go to the next step, you see that you're making more progress. So it is kind of a progressive plan.
Now, here's what I personally like about Dave's baby steps, and that is that Dave gave me a hefty kick in the seat of the pants when we were living in our teeny tiny house in a really bad neighborhood. It was deteriorating
Quickly.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
And about that time was when I actually read my first Dave Ramsey book. So it was well into the 2000s before I'd ever even read Dave Ramsey. And when I read about gazelle intensity, it like lit a fire inside my mind. And he came home and I was like, yes, we're going to move. And yes, we're going to be gazelle intense. And yes, we're going to make this happen. And really, I don't know if that would have happened or if it certainly would have happened that quickly had I not read Dave Ramsey and had him really encourage me. You can do this, put your mind to it, and work hard. So Dave, thank you for that. That's one of the reasons we like it. Okay.
I think it details out a plan that you can follow better than the 50, 20, 30 plan. It goes into a lot more minute detail. So you can really pick up on all the different aspects of your budget and apply it into Dave Ramsey's plan and see some really good results.
Yeah. For those of us who are incredibly detail oriented, we like,
OCD?
Yeah, a little bit. Thank you for saying that. It gives us something to go through from one point to the next, and we really like that. Now, why do we feel like we're not down on Dave, but why do we feel like there's some downsides to his plan?
Well, as I mentioned, $1,000 isn't very much really for an emergency fund. A car repair today can easily exceed $1,000 on just basic repairs. And, home repairs, a lot of times they're going to come right up to that or go over the top.
Just ask us, we'll tell you from hard experience.
Yeah. And we've been dealing with some lately, so we can certainly address those issues. So I don't think $1,000 is enough, but it is a place to start. But I don't think you don't want to stay there very long because it's not going to be a very safe place to be.
And in all fairness to Dave, I have heard him say repeatedly that he is well aware that $1,000 is not enough. But he does feel like it's enough of a cushion to, once again, as he did for me, give you a kick in the seat of the pants to figure out how you're going to get the rest of the money that you need. For us, we just, honestly, we don't skip that step. We just tell you to start out with $2,000. We want you to have enough for that first emergency without worrying about it. So we say start at $2,000, not $1,000 like Dave. What's the next thing that we kind of have reservations about Dave's plan?
Well, it ignores the avalanche method of debt repayment.
Now, we mentioned the snowball method, which is the one that Dave favors. And in truth, like if you've got debt, Dave says, put it down on paper from the smallest to the largest amount. Pay no attention to the interest rate that you're being charged. Just start paying the smallest debt, and when you're done paying that, roll the amount you were paying on the smallest debt into the next largest debt. Then when you're done with that one, roll those two amounts over to the third debt. Do you see what I'm saying? You do pick up momentum. You do pick up momentum quickly because you're working on the smallest debts first. But ultimately, the avalanche method may work better for you. The avalanche method says you are going to list those debts in order from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate, regardless of the amount that is owed on each. And mathematically, to be honest, the avalanche method does have some distinct advantages over the snowball method and will ultimately save you more money because you're paying off the high interest rate debt first.
Exactly what I was thinking. You would save more money quicker by addressing those high interest loans first.
It's hard for us. There are a few things that I think we do take really hard stands on. But to be honest with you, the method that you utilize to pay off your debt isn't one of them for us. That's not a hill we're prepared to die on. What we are prepared to do is tell you that if you have debt, you need to pay it off. But the method you use to do that, we don't care, as long as you're paying it off and sticking to the plan you've chosen and making forward progress. That's good with us.
You want to stay steady at it.
Now, the final thing that we think is a little problematic with Dave's is, although we told you, honestly, we like the fact it has 7 steps, and we do. And we like the fact it goes into more detail, and we do. It also tends to overwhelm some people when you get into some of those middle steps that are meatier, for lack of a better word, than some of the smaller steps, the steps that come first. It's pretty easy to save $1,000, right? You can do that fairly quickly. And then you move on to step 2. And if you've got a whole lot of debt to pay off, it feels like you're stuck at step 2 for a long time. And for people who need to see forward progress, it can seem like an awful long way from baby step 1 to baby step 7. And I do think that that does tend to discourage some people because they feel like they're only making progress in one area of their life and no progress in any other area of their life.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, in case you were wondering, we are going to reveal to you. Can I do my drum roll?
Oh, yeah.
They love my drum roll. There's the drum roll.
Can I add some drum roll sound effects?
No, just my drum roll. Only my drum roll. Guys, you tell me in the comment section if you hear him put his own drum roll in. All right. Which is the one plan that is the perfect, proven plan for money management? It works every single time. Larry, tell him, what is it?
The plan that you use and stick with.
That's right. Look, there are advantages and disadvantages to all 3 plans that we just shared with you. Here's the truth, guys. Come in close. There's no perfect money management plan. All 3 of these are good. All 3 of these will help you to pay off debt. All 3 of these will help you to save toward the future. But none of these will work if you don't pick one and if you don't stick with it. So do those 2 things. Pick one, stick with it, and whatever that plan is, that for you is the one perfect, proven money management method. Now, if you want the inside look and the 411 on the money management method that we use and all the forms that we use, I've put it all into an ebook for you. It is our personal finance planner, and I'm going to leave a link for you in the description of this video. Hey, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Talk to us in the comment section. Tell us which one of these 3 methods, or is there a different one that you use that is your perfect, proven money management system? We'll talk to you in the comments section, guys, and we'll see you next week on the next edition of Under the Median.